with a question from Twitter. It's actually from Dan, who we heard speaking earlier. He says, what is it to be human? At what point would we sacrifice it to survive? So very much stuff that you guys were talking about, that kind of idea of, if we modify ourselves, there is presumably going to come a point where there's an argument to say we're no longer human.
Yeah, I think there will come a point when we won't be human. I think the problem is we're just not sure when that is going to be, and maybe when it does arrive, it might be too late to do anything about it, whether we would like to lose our humanity and progress on further, or just stay the way we are.
But presumably there's also a possibility that some people would be fine with it, and there'd be a kind of speciation where you have old school humans and then new humans. Is that something you'd like to see, David?
Mutants. There are some aspects of humanity which are not very good. We have inherited some bad habits from our days through evolution. We are often spiteful, mean, nasty, deceptive. I would like us to be able to transcend these evolutionary throwbacks. So to an extent, I look forward to, might call it a transhuman or a post-human future, when we keep what's really good about humanity and we leave behind some of the bad aspects of humanity. Now, I'm not going to say that everybody has to do this. There will be, it's very important to transhumanists, for example, that there is choice and freedom in this. But I look at, for example, another example is learning how to read and write. Once upon a time, it was quite normal for people to be illiterate, and most people could do most of their work if they wanted, without the pain and unnatural situation of going and sitting down in a school. How unnatural is that? But, we figured out it probably is good for all of us if we do legislate that people should have some education and learn to read and write. So I think in the future, people will gradually realize, actually, you will be more fulfilled, you will have richer experience and richer opportunities if you take advantage of some of the technological possibilities to live longer and smarter and kinder.
You sort of mentioned freedom, but also is there not an issue with who decides what the good and bad traits are of humanity? Because you're sort of saying it like there's a kind of moral absolutism at play, and that we can all agree that this is a bad trait and this is a good trait. I'm not sure you're right about that.
Well, I actually agree that there's a lot of working out that needs to be done, because some of the characteristics that I mentioned in the past, people thought, well, that's the right way to be for society. It's right and good in a sense that women are second sex and they're subservient to men. A few women thought that, but most, but not all. But we changed our minds through a collective discussion. So we should have that discussion and move forward. It's going to be a challenging and difficult discussion. We may change our minds along the way, but not one person should be responsible for it, absolutely. It should be a collective discussion, drawing on the best of tradition, drawing on the best of new insight as well.
Is death so bad, John?
Well, no, I don't think so. But I suppose you're all thinking, no, you wouldn't, because you're the director of a center that studies that. No, I mean, it's not. I mean, I think that, this question, and I really appreciate and have a lot of respect for what you guys worked up thinking through these. I mean, if I could get my undergraduates to come up with half the list of the stuff you guys came up with, they'd all get like first and like A's all the time. I can't. Anyway. That's my students are another issue. The point.
Are any of them watching this on video?
Yeah, no, hey kids. No, I think I really think one of the key issues here is how do we define the human? And I want to come back to this because this gets back to this question of death, but also life. Because historically, within the history of science, philosophy, the humanities, the arts, the concept of the human has changed. And it will most certainly change again and continue to change. And I think it's important to keep in mind that alongside that, the definition of death has changed. So where for a long time we would have thought of someone being dead when their heart stopped, and that caused them to no longer be alive because they no more circulation of blood, and so they didn't have oxygen in their brain. We've seen the shift since post-World War II to now thinking about the person is dead when their brain activity has stopped. Now, you can still have heart death and brain death, but the point is that there's been a shift in how we define where the person is. The person used to be in the heart, but now we think of the person as being in the brain. And I think that how we define the human is always going to, in many ways, be reflective in how we define the end of life or death. And so death, I think, is actually really crucial. And I think for many people, it can be a good thing. But that's not to say what constitutes that good thing won't change, because it will. And that I completely agree with.
I think death's usually only a good thing because people are very sick and very miserable and very upset by that stage. And it's very expensive for them to be treated, and there's lots of trouble and anguish in their family, and they say, well, you know, it'll be sweet to die to end this. But if they weren't in that situation to start off with, when somebody who's in their 30s or 20s is knocked down by a car and killed, we don't say, oh, that's death, that's all right. We say, what a waste of opportunity.
Right. Yeah, no, and which is also important to say that death, while universal in a sense, is not. So death is very specific. In fact, it's one of the most individualized things we ever take in. So I think that's important to keep in mind, too, that when we talk about death, it's a big topic, but it goes in lots of very specific directions.
Any questions from the audience? Yes, lady here.
I've got a question about what happens to the criminal justice system with regards to people who have committed serious crimes that require a life sentence. Would that life sentence be...
So I've thought about this quite a bit, like what happens to the notion of the life sentence if you're, and so this is totally dystopian, and I know you're not talking about this at all, David, but there is this notion, this has come up in sci-fi before, where you are a person who is condemned to life, literally. You know what I mean? Like, and I think no one's proposed that, but there is that concept. Could something like a radical life extension, it wouldn't have to be forever, but could it actually be used as a kind of, in the criminal justice system? As a kind of like, I don't think that may or may not happen, but there's...
I don't think the criminal justice system is one of humanity's greatest accomplishments. You know, it's a sort of a fix to some bad situations that have arisen. We can do a lot better than the present criminal justice system if we can put more focus on helping people to be restored and to lose their tendencies and their likelihoods to commit crimes. So I think that we should be fixing that system as well and decriminalizing a lot of things which are currently criminal and finding better ways to allow people to become full, productive, positive members of the human race rather than being renegade criminals.
Any more? Just by show of hands, who here would like to live forever?
Forever's a very long time.
Yeah, we need to define.
500 years? Anyone for 500?
500 years.
Few for 500. Your thing, David, is you would, and this is good actually, you would sort of be alive for a bit and then you'd hibernate for a while and then get woken up when something interesting was happening.
If I really thought that I'd done all the things which I'd wanted to do, I'd read all the literature, played all the games, explored all the parts of the universe, learned all the mathematics, listened to all the music, met all the interesting people that I wanted to, think there was nothing else to do, then I might have myself put into long-term hibernation with possibly to be woken up if something radically new happens. I would like to be in control of when I'm switched off, rather than it happening to me. That's what freedom is about. Is we are in control of how long we live, rather than it happening to us by factors which are far outside our own control.
And how feasible do you think that kind of technology is, that sort of hibernation? Because the thing that really struck me about what you said, John, was that we don't really know if we'd be able to reanimate someone from a cryo state, and if we did, whether they'd have their memories. Because if you don't have your memories, then you're effectively just getting born again, and then what's the point? So
this is quite early technology. Recently, the C. elegans worms, which are pretty small, they have been cryonically frozen and then revived, and they can remember various things which they were trained to before they were suspended, such as a certain smell means turn right to get food, another smell means turn left to go get food. This is very interesting recent research that's been done. There are many other ideas in which we might replace the current system of cryonic suspension with different mechanisms. So I think within 50 years we can probably look to big steps forwards. As John says, it's unknown, but we can move up the animal chain gradually. Today, C. elegans worms, next maybe some fruit flies, who knows what comes after that.
Presumably killing an old clam.
Hopefully keeping the clam alive next time. That's not one of humanity's greatest accomplishments either.
It's a real shame, isn't it?
It's another. I mean, that's again. That's another. I mean, people are working on that. It was in the first session on AI, and we were talking about. Again, it's speculative. There are a lot of people working on that, but we're still. I mean, there's a debate amongst neurologists whether that would even be possible, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be pursued. I mean, I'm interested in it. It could actually get around this whole notion of memory loss, which say you're brought back from cryopreservation, you've already pre-downloaded all your memories, and then they're just uploaded when you're brought out of suspension. So that might be one. But there's an enormous number of variables just trying to understand how the brain works at this point. On the flip side, maybe it's actually not that difficult. And maybe we humans are letting our ego get in the way and saying, well, we can't do that because we're perfect or something, you know what I mean? So maybe actually it's not. But it just hasn't been demonstrated yet. But it might, you never know.
Would you guys be interested in having your brains downloaded onto a machine so that you sort of had your consciousness was existing somewhere else?
No.
No?
The youth speaks. Actually, one of the most interesting writers on this, I don't know if you guys will see, well, yeah, you guys are old enough. Charlie Brooker's Black Mirror series has done some really great stuff, particularly in an episode called Be Right Back, when someone dies. Yeah, you guys might be too young for that. That's right. Your parents will let you watch it.
Yeah, don't recommend that stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
But it is good.
But I think more and more speculative and interesting fiction is actually picking up the ethics of this. But that's been true of science fiction for a long time. Science fiction really gets into the ethical quandaries of these topics, and I think speaks to a future that we find ourselves in a lot faster than we might be comfortable with.
So, should euthanasia be legal in the UK? We'll go around and ask everyone. What do you think?
I feel it should, because, it's more from a personal standpoint, really. Because I wouldn't want to be alive in immense pain or in a vegetable-like state. I'd rather end my life. So.
I agree with Dylan. I think that it should be legal in the UK, not just from personal opinion, but I also feel that if you want to have a complete control over your life, it should be one of your rights that should you really want to end your life, then you should have the right to end your life, and that should be your decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would depend on circumstances. Like, if someone was in great pain and by being hooked up to a machine or anything wasn't giving them any benefits, then they should have that option to end their life there and then, because it will end suffering for both that person and also their families.
So interestingly, the euthanasia question comes up in the context of cryonics. Because if people look at the options, and most people haven't looked at the options of cryonics, but if people look at the options and they're about to die, maybe they should have the opportunity presented to them of going into cryonic suspension. But if the disease is ravaging their brain, it would be better for them actually to be cryonically preserved, perhaps before their brain gets ravaged by disease. And this is a very grey area, so the suspension team follows people around until the moment they can be declared clinically dead, and then once they're declared clinically dead, they actually get part of the body working again. So I would vote for people being able, in such a circumstance, to go into cryonic preservation if they really knew what was going on before they were declared clinically dead.
How do people pay for it?
They pay for it via insurance. You can actually take out an insurance, it's not that much. And when you die, the insurance comes to various things. It can come to your next of kin, or it can come to pay for a treatment.
If you did have a terminal condition, let's say, and you were frozen, can you be certain you wouldn't retain that condition after you were woken up?
So I think I would retain the condition. First of all, I can't be certain I would be woken up. And it's a probability game. I think I'm more likely to be woken up if I'm chronically preserved than if I'm buried in the field and worms eat me up, or if I'm cremated. There might be some weird possibilities even in these cases. But I can't be certain I would be woken up. And if I am woken up, the disease would still be there, but people's grasp of technology would be so much better at that stage that they would be able to flush in whatever nanobots or whatever could fix their problem at that time. So they wouldn't wake me up until that was feasible.
So it's just a question of taking a small chance instead of having no chance.
It's a small chance, but I would argue it's a scientifically educated chance.
Just quickly, John, euthanasia?
We need to answer there's a clarification of terms here. Euthanasia legally means when someone puts you to death. So, say a doctor euthanized you would be inject, say, something to put you to death, and that is illegal in most countries, with the exception of the Netherlands and Belgium has some policies now with that. What has come up in this country has been the concept of assisted dying, in which someone would assist you to die. This is a law that's taken from the states, in the state of Oregon and the northwest of the part of the states. So in this country, the assisted dying bill that was recently debated in the House of Commons in September, the idea is that someone would give you whatever would cause you to die, but you would have to ingest it yourself. So to that answer to your question, do I support some kind of assisted dying? I do, because I think you can create legal guidelines for it. Euthanasia, I have to say I'm more ethically on a lot of, I don't know, quite honestly, because I know that there are instances where I can completely understand how putting someone to death makes complete sense, but I'm also troubled by a lot of other things too. And so it's just, I think, part of that big question about the ethics of those cases.
Okay, that is all we got time for. Please thank once again John Troyer, David Wood, Art 31, Dylan, Lou and Sophie. Thanks, guys.